tell, as far as, and it's fucking tragic, but there is no like biography of him out there. There's no real good study of this guy, simply because there isn't a lot, which is really kind of weird, because with most of the people who are like key into magical history, there are biographies and studies, and people write books about them and stuff like that. But as far as I can tell, he made his living just through writing and lecturing on the Kabbalah. Maybe he had another job. He came from a very poor family. Like his father was a shoemaker, so which kind of meant it could possibly be one of the reasons that he was trying to join the seminary. But in previous times, you would think that, but at the time, the church had no money, so it doesn't even make sense then.
It's interesting that he went to jail for writing.
Oh yeah, well,
a lot of key historical figures, like John Dee also spent time in prison.
Well, John Dee didn't do time because he went and pleaded his case and got off, but he was accused.
I thought he was in prison. If that's what I read in I just saw that.
The connection with the alchemical tradition?
He writes about alchemy. It's hard to say what he actually has a connection with, just because of what I was saying before about how we don't really have a distinct. I think that Waite, as much as I don't like Waite, as I think he has a point where you can see a shift in Levy's writing where he's talking about a lot of things that you consider mystical secrets, and he particularly, and Dogma and Ritual Transcendental Magic's online, so you can easily look that up, what he says about it, and he definitely thinks that it's important, but whether it was because it was part of a mystery school that he actually belonged to, or just something that he had studied, is impossible to really say, so you don't have a record on that, which is unfortunate. But
so it's probably because a lot of the documents got destroyed, or there was just
well, no, I just don't think that Levy was keeping records in the same way that Crowley was, or that Dee was necessarily. I mean, that's just a conjecture. But I mean, it's just like the Martinist sect. I know for a fact that Gerard Accus, or Pappas, was one of his contemporaries and one of his buddies, and was part of a Martinist sect. So it's reasonable to think that they may have had a connection there, but it's not. There's no evidence means no evidence, right? So it's hard to say. And that whole sect was destroyed during World War II. That's part of the reason that the Golden Dawn is the main source of Western magic, is just because England was never conquered by the Nazis, so the material was never destroyed. Because they wanted all that shit for themselves. Let's see if there's anything I got here. Oh, well, that's kind of interesting. Levy did assert that there was a Jacobin conspiracy behind the French Revolution, which is an interesting statement to make. It's sort of famous that because Jacques de Molay, who was the last head of the Templars, was executed in Paris, that there was somehow a connection between that and the French Revolution. In the traditional apocryphal version, they say, and this is why I just find it interesting, because everyone quotes this, that Levy has a different version of the story. In the traditional version, after cutting off the king's heads, the guy says, Jacques de Molay has been avenged. Essentially, like, the last head of the Templars was captured and tortured because the authorities at the time, namely the papal authorities, but this was a point when they were like multiple popes, kind of arguing about who was the most popeliest. Yes, so they wanted the wealth of the Templars because after the Crusades in 1200, they had immense wealth, so they wanted to kind of steal it from them. So they tortured them and got them to confess to all these crimes that were, either spurious or kind of based on maybe things that happened. Ah, shit! I meant to start with that.
I did the totally wrong talk.
No, I just remembered because it's the whole Baphomet thing. This is actually the thing that like Levy's the most famous for, which I should have.
And you don't have it on camera.
Yeah, I know. My camera just showed off too. So. The thing that the image that Levy's most famous for is from the Templars. It's like we've all seen this. It's like the goat-headed god with the breasts and the Baphomet. The Baphomet. He is the source of many a heavy metal cover and the inspiration for the emblem of the Church of Satan and so on and so forth, which is absolutely fucking hilarious if you read what Levy actually says about it, where he says that it's essentially a representation of the Christian Holy Spirit, because it's meant to be the union of opposites. It's man and beast. It's human, beast, man, woman, light and dark, all those things together, which very highly informs Crowley's system when he talks about crossing the abyss. The idea of achieving, as they call it in yoga, samadhi, where everything becomes one thing. There are no more contradictions. All contradictions are resolved, and all is one, essentially. And that's sort of Levy's glyph for that. That's why Crowley's OTO name was Baphomet, because he was trying to express the fact that he had gotten to that point. Yeah, so that's what Levy's the most famous for, so that's a good closer. I totally meant to start with that. I really did. I didn't write that in my notes.
Well, what's the etymology behind Baphomet? I heard it's derived from like Mohammed or something.
It's Mahomet would be Muhammad. Baphomet, the idea, I think the literal translation is the wise man on the mountain.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm going to finish my Jacques de Molay story. Pardon me?
It's also the deadhead. In the alchemical tradition, it was like the deadhead. It was the
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think that's part of the fact that like Arab culture had kind of gotten a lot farther in terms of like chemistry and mathematics and stuff like that, and there was and hence alchemy was sort of went hand in hand with that. A lot of the influence of that on sort of Western Europe came from just being with the Crusades, because the Templars really, like, as much as they were there to kill people, they wound up getting really influenced by Islam and really taking a lot of those ideas into what they were doing. So in the traditional version, it's Jacques de Molay has been avenged. In Levy's version, a man comes up and takes the blood that's running from the king's executed neck and throws it into the crowd and says, "I baptize you in the name of Jacques de Molay," which is maybe a minor difference, but I think there's something significant about the whole concept of the baptism being introduced into that. Like, again, when you look at Levy's priestly past, there's something going on there, and to me that it's interesting that he would be the one person that contradicts that, and I like anomalies. I like to look for anomalies, and considering there are so many versions, there's so many different versions of what happened in that scene when you look at historical texts, and his is the only one that's different. Now, yeah, he does like to make stuff up, but then again, every now and then, I'm just kind of like, well, he does like to make stuff up, but that doesn't seem like something that he'd make up. So I kind of wonder if there's actual inside information with that. One of the person that he says that he learned the most about Kabbalah from was his hairdresser. And he names the guy. I've seriously looked into everything that I've tried to find to see if there's a record about this guy or what's going on, because he does name him in History of Magic, and he says this is was the greatest Kabbalist of our time. But yeah, he was just like a barber in Paris who apparently knew a shitload about Kabbalah, and it's like he could be making that up, but why would he? It doesn't make any sense. I forget off the top of my head. One of the main guys he talks about is Dupostel, who isn't, again, he's another guy who there's no record for. And this becomes interesting where it's like, if he was part of a mystery school, it would be very likely, if he was part of some kind of secret society, that he would not be giving out the names of the other people in there. So it's very possible that the people he's talking about are historical figures of some kind who he just doesn't want to name because he doesn't want to out them. So that's a strong possibility as well.